Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Over the time that I was, stopped for essentially doing YouTube for the day, and the videos were ending, it seems that they have released a second wave of Twitter files. These are the Fauci files, the great man of the, killing people, I guess you want to say, because he's being exposed, and we're going to get into it. Alright, let's start. So, it goes on with this. Twitter and the FBI belly button. Oh my, well that can't possibly be good. 2020, Twitter was struggling with the problem of public and private agencies bypassing them and going straight to the media with lists of suspect accounts. In February 2020, as COVID broke out, the Global Engagement Center, fledgling analytic intelligence arms of the State Department, went to the media with a report called Russian Disinformation, apparently taking advantage of coronavirus concerns. The GEC flagged accounts as Russian personas and proxies based on criteria like describing the coronavirus as an engineered bioweapon, blaming research conducted at the Wuhan Institute, and attributing the appearance of the virus to the CIA. State also flagged accounts that retweeted news that Twitter banned the popular U.S. Zero Hedge, claiming the episode led to another flurry of disinformation narratives. ZH had done reports speculating that the virus had lab origin. The GEC still had led directly to news stories like the AFP's headline, Russia-linked disinformation campaign led to coronavirus alarm, U.S. says, and a political story about how Russian, Chinese, Iranian disinformation narratives echo one another. If you haven't made a Russia attribution in some time, when Crimson's Media Forensics Hub complained, Twitter hadn't made a Russia attribution. In some time, Trust and Safety Chief Joel Roth said it was revelatory of their motives. We're happy to work directly with you on this instead of NBC. Losh tried in vain to convince outside researchers like the Clemson lab to check with them before pushing stories about foreign interference to media. Well, it does have this here, so we'll read this little part. Agreed. Given they have a USG relationship, happy for the DC team to pick up the relationship, but I've spoken to them in the past and similarly share Roll's frustration that they don't take any sort of guidance on what they found. Thanks all Nick Pickles for awareness as well. We redacted left. I started interfacing directly with the Clemson folks in the hopes of getting them to stop going down this path of running to press with claims of IRA activity. Obviously, I was unsuccessful as we've been unsuccessful with them for years now. Happy for whoever to manage this, but I do think direct outreach to them to say something like, "Hey, we heard from a reporter that you say you found the IRA." As we've said a bunch of times, we're so happy to work directly with you on this instead of VIA NBC would be justified. Twitter also was trying to reduce the number of agencies with access to Roth. If these folks are like House Homeland Committee and DHS, once we give them a direct contact with Yoel, they will want to come back to him. And again, said Policy Director Carlos Monge. I think it's Monge or Monge, I'm not entirely sure. When the State Department, GEC, remember this was 2020, during the Trump administration, wanted to publicize a list of 5,500 accounts it claimed would amplify Chinese propaganda and disinformation about COVID. Twitter analysts were besides themselves. The GEC report appeared based on DHS data and circulated earlier that week and included accounts that followed 2 or more Chinese diplomatic accounts. The report ended up with a list nearly 250,000 names long and included Canadian officials and a CNN account. So, more evidence that CNN is more of a corrupt organization and is pushing one side of the narrative. Of course, we all knew this, but again, being exposed. Roth saw GEC's move as an attempt to buy the GEC to use intel from other agencies to insert themselves into the content moderation club that included Twitter, Facebook, the FBI, DHS, and others. Oh my. The GEC was soon agreeing to loop in Twitter before going public, but they were using a technique that had boxed in Twitter before. The delta between when they share material and when they go to the press continues to be problematic, wrote one comms official. The episode led to a rare public disagreement between Twitter and state officials. It makes sense to push back on GEC participation in this forum. When the FBI informed Twitter that GEC wanted to be included in the regular industry call between companies like Twitter and Facebook and the DHS and FBI, Twitter leaders balked at first. Facebook, Google, and Twitter executives were united in opposition to GEC's inclusion, with ostensible reasons including the GEC's mandate for offensive I/O to promote American interests. A deeper reason was a perception that unlike the GHS and FBI, which were apolitical, as Roth put it, the GEC was political, which in Twitterverse, Twitterese, sorry, my apologies, not Twitterverse, it's Twitterese, appeared to be partisan code. I think they thought the FBI was less Trumpy, is how one former DoD official put it. Well, we all know now that the FBI was definitely less Trumpy by every regard of the mention. I think that the FBI is horribly corrupt along with the DHS, and I think some heavy regulations need to be put down. And as we're seeing right now, we're seeing House Speaker being tried to be decided, and I'm hoping to God Jim Jordan does it, because I will maybe do actually a video of Jim Jordan actually releasing a small statement of a 2-minute clip, because it's absolutely amazing. I agree with everything he says. I think he would be an amazing House Speaker. But nonetheless, let's continue on forward. After spending years roaring over the Democratic Party request for action on Russian-linked accounts, Twitter was suddenly playing tough. Why? Because, as Roth put it, it would pose major risk to bring the GSC in, especially as the elections heats up. When senior lawyer Stacia Cardell tried to argue against the GEC's inclusion to the FBI, the words resonated with Elvis, not Laura, i.e. with Agent Elvis Chan, not Foreign Influence Task Force Unit Chief Laura Dimlow. Eventually, the FBI signed first to Facebook for a compromise solution. Other USG agencies could participate in the industry calls, but the FBI and the DHS would act as sole conduits. Roth reached out to Chan with concerns about letting the press happy GEC in, expressing hope they could keep the circle of trust small. State, NSA, and CIA Chan reassured him it would be a one-way channel, and State, GSC, NSA, and CIA have expressed interest in being allowed on in listen mode only. Belly's button. We can give you everything we're seeing from the FBI and USIC agencies, Chan explained, but the DHS agency CISA will know what's going on in each state. He went on to ask if the industry could rely on the FBI to be the belly button of the USG. They eventually settled on an industry call via Signal. In an impressive display of operational security, Chan circulated private numbers of each company's chief moderation officer and a Word doc marked Signal phone numbers, subject line list of numbers. Twitter was taking requests from every conceivable government body, beginning with the Senate Intel Committee, which seemed to need reassurance. Twitter was taking FBI direction. Execs rushed to tell the team as SCI the exact 5 accounts on an FBI tip. Requests arrived and were escalated from all over, from Treasury, the NSA, virtually every state, the HHS, from the FBI and DHS, and more. We're seeing a lot of links here, guys, that the FBI and the DHS are not our friends, and we've known this for a little while now. But this is showing it even further that it's not great. They also received an astonishing variety of requests from officials asking for interviews so they didn't like to be banned. Here, the Office for Democrat and House Intel Committee Chief Adam Schiff asked Twitter to ban journalist Paul Sperry. We don't do this. Even Twitter declined to honor Schiff's request at the time. Sperry was later suspended, however. Twitter honored almost everyone else's requests, even those from GEC, including a decision to ban accounts like Rebel Protest and Bricks Media, because GEC identified them as group control and linked to the Russian government, respectively. The GEC requests were that a former CIA staffer working at Twitter was referring to when he said our window on that is closing, meaning days when Twitter could say no serious requests were over. Remember, the 2018 internal guidance in which Twitter decided to remove any user identified by the U.S. intelligence community as a state-sponsored entity in committing cyber operations by 2020. Such identifications came in bulk. USIC requests from office typically began, we assess, and then provided lists, sometimes in separate Excel docs, they believed were connected to Russia's Internet Research Agency and committing cyber ops from Africa to South America to the U.S. A brief report and sent right after Russia's invasion of Ukraine early last year flagged major Russian outlets like Vedomosti and Gazeta.ru, which I may would be Russian in this case, note the rugged language about state actors fits Twitter's internal guidance. Some reports were just paragraph long and said things like the attached email accounts were possibly used for influence operations, social media collection, or social engineering, without further explanation. Twitter would be forwarded an Excel doc. They were even warned about the publicity surrounding a book by former Ukraine prosecutor Fauci Shokin, who alleged corruption by the U.S. government, specifically by Joe Biden. Oh, what a slam that is! We're not really surprised by that now, are we? So, Joe Biden has been outed out as being part of the Russian influence. Oh. You hate to see it, right, fellas? You hate to see it. We all knew it. They were all denying it, trying to deny it, but it's all there. The weeks before the election in 2020, Twitter was so confused by the various streams of incoming requests, staffers had to ask the FBI which was which. I apologize in advance for your workload. Requests poured in from FBI offices all over the country, day after day, hour after hour. If Twitter didn't act quickly, questions came. Was action taken? Any movement? Wrote senior attorney Sacha Caroli, Cadell, May inbox is really F up at this point. It all led to the situation described by Schamberger MD 2 weeks ago, and Twitter was paid $3,415,000 essentially for being an overwhelmed subcontractor. Twitter wasn't just paid for the amount of work they did for government. They were underpaid. So this also comes into the mere fat guys as well. What Twitter was mostly being held up for the most part by the government, because they were being paid for certain of the actions that they've done. So the only reason why Twitter was even able to stay up for I wanted to assume as long as it did was thanks to the government. The government was keeping up their wingman, their information censorer, so that way that Twitter did not fall, even though it was still heading for bankruptcy. And now Facebook is as well. Once these major companies start falling, the government has less power. So I implore all of us to immensely stop using Facebook, which I think a lot of you have, and immensely stop using Twitter, or maybe not now, because Twitter is being very good under the power of Elon Musk, but these social media companies need to die, and they need to go off immediately, because of what we're seeing. The government is using them to hate people, to defy the American people, and they're not with us. I think we discovered that very easily. Alright, well, we'll see more on what's going on with the Twitter files. There's some damning evidence, and I can't wait to see more. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share, and as always, take care.